Nupcake News had the answer to the first question. Now be careful, because you may be tricked. It is not the item quality level that is the answer. Let me give you a clue on that. It is not the item quality level. Okay, let's get back to the show, shall we? I have many, many more emails and other topics that need to be covered today, as well as 2 more features. Now, I'm going to go on to instance design. How did it work out? Now, as you are most certainly well aware, the Burning Crusade consists of winged instances, and lots of them. Almost every zone has one. The first zone has the Hellfire Citadel, which of course has 4 instances in. You've got the Ramparts, the Blood Furnace. You also have the Shattered Halls, and Magtheridon's Lair. Okay? That's what you've got. Now, how difficult are these instances? That's the question. And how is the design? Now, first things first, I've got to say, winged instances, generally a really good idea. Especially if you're pugging quite a lot. Now, the length of the instance in a proper or the organised guild group doesn't really make a blind bit of difference, because these are the guys who you are raiding with for 7 or 8 hours straight before the expansion. And perhaps are now. Pugs, on the other hand, yeah, well, every minute you spend in an instance with a pug is 1 more minute where one of the members can leave and or screw up. Probably both. At the most crucial moment. For instance, yesterday I was in a group for Sethic Halls, a not-so-ideal group by any stretch of the imagination. And we wipe on the last boss. And the hunter ends up back in Shatrath. For no apparent reason whatsoever. I said, sorry guys, I pressed the wrong button. What button? What button could you possibly press to take you back to Shatrath? Ugh. Morons. Again, every single minute you spend in an instance is a minute where your pug can go horribly wrong. So, the shorter the instance wings, the better. It keeps the concentration of little people. It allows you to do very many. Now, are they as well designed as Scarlet Monastery was? Some are, some aren't. Some are awesome. I mean, I'm not going to dispute. I love some of the designs. I loved the Ramparts. I loved Blood Furnace. I haven't been in Shattered Halls yet. But from the looks of it, from what I've watched of it, by watching Kiki play and by simply watching the videos, Shattered Halls looks awesome as well. I like the format. 3 instances, a progressing difficulty, then a raid dungeon. Good. I like that. Coilfang did it really well, in my opinion. Really, really well. The slave pens were relatively challenging. The Underbog, good fun in my opinion. A good instance, I enjoyed the Underbog. And then of course we've got Steam Vaults, and then you have Lady Vash. So, that's a good setup. Now, we'll go over to Ocean Dune, and Ocean Dune's quite nice. But this is where the cracks start to form, in my honest opinion. Ocean Dune is very, very linear. And, in my opinion, there aren't actually enough quests running through these instances. I mean, Ramparts had quite a few. They had a relatively long quest line where you had to go into a few places. There's also quests for Shattered Halls, which, of course, you can't acquire till level 70. It is a 70 instance. That's fair enough. However, how many were there for Coilfang? I seem to recall a grand total of... let's see. There was 1 that you could pick up outside. I think there was another one, and then there was a couple from Sporagar, which didn't really have... They don't really get a lot with them, I'd put it that way. You've got to take down the Black Stalker, if I remember correctly. Not a huge number. Now, as far as the design goes, just how linear are they, and what kind of difficulty level are you dealing with? Is it sufficient? When you're dealing with stuff like the Ramparts, I mean, there isn't... You cannot argue that the Ramparts is not easy. The trash is pathetic. I can tank the trash without a problem. Really. It doesn't really hit all that hard. Now, trash in, say, Sethic is hitting you an awful lot harder. I mean, take Ramparts. If I go in there... When I went in there at level 60, and I was pulling aggro like no one's business because I wasn't used to the 10% aggro reduction on Burning Soul and my incremental damage increase. So I was pulling aggro left, right, and centre, and I'm just tanking things. And I was being hit for like 200, 300. I'm like, this is nothing. You know. And then Sethek, they start hitting you for 1,000. Okay, that's more like it. And then you, of course, go up to Heroics, and they're hitting you for 6k and killing you in one hit. And I thought, oh, haha, now, there you go. So, yeah, Rampart's easy. The bosses are easy. Some people wipe on the dragon. That's because they don't know what they're doing, to be honest. They just need to be ready for what's going to happen. The dragon is nothing more than a glorified rend. Relatively simple. Blood Furnace is absolute, complete, yeah. How easy can that really get? The only problem I've ever had with Blood Furnace is the bloody assassins that are nowhere. They're interesting. I like the fact that they're in there, because you've got to be a little bit careful. You can't just go running in. Because literally, these things can slice and dice a clothy very, very fast before people know what's going on. So they're a bit of a pain in the ass. However, overall, the instance is not difficult. It's nicely designed, though. The fact that you finish the last boss, and spoiler warning, McTherden is right underneath you, and McTherden's been screaming at you for the past however many minutes as you run through the instance. It's good. The loot table is relatively good as well. Slave Pens is pretty good. Underbog's pretty good. Underbog has some relatively challenging trash pulls, which is nice. It's at this point the trash pulls tend to get a little bit more interesting. The Mana Tombs, the Anshani Crypts, Sethek Halls, all have really interesting trash pulls, and the difficulty tends to ramp up there. Now, I've heard some people saying that Pandemonius is a Nax level difficulty boss. No. No, sorry. I think it's people trying to justify, hey, it's a 5-man, it can be really, really difficult, without it being, oh dear, this thing hits for 6k, and that's why it's challenging. In the case of Pandemonius, people say, well, Pandemonius is really difficult. It's not really, it's tricky. It's like a mixture of, well, it's difficult to describe. It's looking at everyone gets hit, yeah? So you're going to need an off-healer. There's no two ways about it. And you've got a magic reflection shield and a damage reflection shield that you need to be really careful of. You just need to stop attacking it. Just like Major Domo. It's not excessively difficult. But no, Pandemonius is not really that hard. Yeah, he can hit pretty hard, but he's not all that difficult. You just DPS the guy down. And just stop for when the shield goes up. That's fair enough. Now, again, take something a little bit further on. The other bosses in there are absolute... yeah. They're just that easy. The trash is harder. And that's kind of worrying, really, because I was hoping for some more interesting boss fights in there. Sethek, on the other hand, has some pretty interesting stuff. The first boss is a desperate scramble to DPS him down before his elementals overwhelm you, because good luck controlling 8 elementals adds, as well as your boss that is hitting your tank like a truck. Bit of a problem there. And of course the last boss, very, very interesting. An Arcane Explosion which can wipe the raid in one hit. Pretty good, I like that. Linearity, I think, is something of an issue. But then, do you really want instances to be a maze? That's the question. Do you want them to be a maze, or do you want them to be straightforward? The challenge, I think, is put in there by the trash. I think they overdid the trash in some cases, especially Sethek Halls. Sethek Halls has 2 bosses, and the trash is... there's ludicrous amounts of trash. I mean, absolutely ludicrous. I can understand why, because the end guy drops the dungeon set 3 pants, yeah? Powerful items. Good items. But trash is something I hope they'd try and get away from. Some of the trash is relatively interesting, but there's only so many times you can be interested by a trash pull, because a lot of the packs are the same. Once you've got them under control, there is no real risk of wiping unless you're pulling ads, and if you're pulling ads, then you're very silly. And you're not doing things properly, it's that simple. Okay. So, the design. Aesthetically very pleasing. Loot tables, pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with the loot tables they've got in there. Some of them, I don't think they've thought them out properly. The problem with having winged instances is if you have smaller loot tables, because you've got fewer bosses. Stuff like the Oshani Crypts, for instance, as a mage, there was no reason why I would ever want to go in there. There is nothing worth having. It's pretty much all healing gear. I don't want to go there, for that very reason. And I'm probably missing out. Fortunately, Blizzard was not entirely stupid in that respect, and they did come up with a nice system to encourage people to go back into instances after they'd got all their drops. They in fact came up with 2 systems, no less. The first system is reputation gains. You go in there to grind rep with various factions, and there are loads of factions. I mean, I'm not a rep grinding fan myself, But if it's stealthed in the form that I go into instances in order to gain it, like the Zul'Gurub grind, like the Anchorage grind, I will willingly do it. If I'm just grinding mobs outside, like I would be for a quest, then I just get bored, because, well, I see no light at the end of the tunnel. There is no chance that I'm going to be getting nice gear out of it until I get to the end of the grind. Whereas, it's a staggered grind with friends if you're grinding rep inside an instance. Well designed, that's a very good idea. I was very pleased with that. Heroic, of course, gives you another option. You can do the instance again, only it's a lot harder. And the rep is better. And you gain the Mark of... whatever the thing is. Mark of Justice or some such thing. And you can hand those in at Shattrath for fat loot. Not only that, but you have to do these in order to unlock some of the future instances. I'm very pleased with that. That's good progressive content. I'm going to keep coming back to that word, because that is something Blizzard really did right in this expansion. They took the idea of progressing through content at a steady pace and at your own pace, and being able to effectively get something done in 45 minutes to an hour that actually has a lasting impact on your character. Whereas previously, in the previous style of endgame, that really didn't happen. Which, I don't know, I liked the old endgame. I really did. I thought there was a lot to be said for the old endgame. There was a lot of challenge to be had, there was a lot of camaraderie along a large group of people, a lot of precision required. Now it's shrunk down. Heroics require quite a lot of precision. Karazhan, takes quite a lot of precision. Gruul's Lair, 25 man. A lot of precision there. Does seem to be just a little bit less than the epic, huge, sprawling instances that we had before. I think Karazhan, the way that Karazhan is designed, is a good starting point, and I'm hoping that Black Temple, Zolaman, and future large-scale instances will be like that, because that's the kind of scale you're after, and it's interesting. Karazhan, by far, one of the most interesting things I've ever seen, if not the most interesting instance design outside of Naxxramas. So yeah, I am a fan. Pretty much. Obviously nothing's perfect. There are some issues. I think some of the loot distribution is silly. The amount of Paladin gear that's dropping for Horde at the moment, and the amount of Shaman gear for Alliance is just daft. Now, I can understand, yeah, it's got to be there, but it does seem to me a little bit silly that they didn't at least implement some kind of check, and perhaps lower the chance that this would drop if there wasn't one of those in the group. But then again, that's never been their thing. Now that, of course, we have Paladins and Shamans on both factions, there's going to be a lot more loot dropping that is not perhaps as useful. And in a 5-man, you can only take 5 classes max, not 9. So you are going to get a lot of loot that gets disenchanted, and I think that's a little bit unfortunate. Difficulty-wise, I think it's a little bit uneven. Heroics, they're challenging. Some of Tempest Keep stuff is challenging. Level 70 Shard Halls, that kind of thing, challenging. It's enjoyable. Some of it is a little bit too easy. I can understand the Ramparts being really easy, but Mana Tombs, Ashani Crypts, there's like the Underbog being too easy is a little bit, in my opinion, just a little bit too much of a giveaway to people, especially considering the gear that's acquirable there. There's some powerful stuff available. So, I would say that I'm not a massive fan of the difficulty. I think it should have been made more difficult, but to be fair, that's what Heroics are for. So I think Blizzard's pretty much covered all its bases there. It's done well in that respect. It really has. The instance design is pretty good. Give more instances. But yeah, I would say that a little bit too easy. I do have to make one special mention. The Caverns of Time. Wow. Definite thumbs up for the Caverns of Time. I've only done the Escape for Thrall first. Now, it was great. I'll admit it. It was nothing more than a disguised escort quest. But it's a good disguised escort quest. It's a recognisable location. It's got recognisable people. Many little Easter eggs, lore Easter eggs. Anyone that's into the lore of World of Warcraft will love that instance. It's great. Relatively challenging. Not amazingly difficult, but relatively challenging. Decent gear. Good easy rep grind. And you get to look like a human. Please bear in mind that, sadly, my troll, when transformed into human form, looks like Hitler. Unfortunate. Definitely unfortunate. I think Blizzard definitely need to fix that, because my troll cannot possibly look like Hitler. Maybe I just missed the tusks, I'll never know. I have a huge number of emails to read out. I'm going to read some more out after this break. I have another feature to play. You may or may not know it. I should hope you know it. For the return of the Murloc is at hand. Enjoy.
Last time on Ask the Murloc.
And so, many moons ago began a tale of mediocrity. A saga of fail. The Murloc, an aristocratic, arrogant and bloodthirsty individual, owns a large estate above a busy town in Hillsbrad. Despite the very real possibility of being flayed alive by his hounds, the townspeople occasionally make the pilgrimage to his stately manor to seek his wisdom. The Murloc humoured this curiosity, often delighting in the questionable advice he gave to these people and stating, "Free dog food for the win!" However, one fateful day, his cousin, the so-called Soviet Murloc, came calling from Winterspring. Bearing a note from the Murloc's grandmother, which entrusted his care unto him, on pain of very, very painful death, with added pain. Lured by the prospect of even greater riches, the Murloc was convinced by the Soviet Murloc to embark on an epic quest to find a valuable silver cup with the ability to grant wishes, and pursue a mysterious sound which he intended to harness for the purpose of world domination. Through many dangerous and bewildering encounters, our two heroes emerged unscathed from this adventure, confronted their nemesis, and were, by some fluke or chance, successful. The Murloc went home and took the Soviet Murloc with him, who he put to work in the fields. The townspeople were happy to see him return and offered him a sacrifice. They're most weak and useless. His bloodlust sated, the Murloc returns to his lordly duties, giving advice to the poor and lost. We join him now in the drawing room with the candlestick. Who are you? What with who? Who are you and why on earth are you in my house? Idiot cousin, release the hounds at once!
But cousin, these people have an appointment. You remember? You is village councillor. You must answer questions. He's in legal agreement for ownership of house.
Blithering imbecile, I'd have gotten away with it if it weren't for you pesky kids. Fine, I suppose I must humour your intolerable and smelly presence. Come into my parlour, you snivelling peasants, and make yourself as comfortable as your leprous hides will allow you. Don't stain the carpet. You stop chewing on the mantelpiece, or I'll have your limbs flambeaued and scattered across the continent. Quiet, all of you. I have limited time. Behold, for I am the wise sage, the Murloc, cower in fear, and so forth. I am the fountain of all knowledge, Azerothian and otherwise. You may ask me a question, and I shall answer. In return, you must get out of my house and avoid staining the carpet in the process. You first. Dear Murloc, I wish to go into the Outlands, but I do not want to buy the expansion. How can I do it? Ah, yes, a good question with an even better answer. You see, in the magical land of flowers and puppies, people love to give away things for free. Quite literally, they love it. They'll go out of their way to do so. It is fortunate for you, since it means you'll be able to get into the Outlands free of charge, with no need to purchase this piffling expansion. First, log into your account. You will find there a list of your pitiful characters. Now delete every last one of them. Don't worry, you'll be able to get them back soon enough, as if you'd want to. They're worthless in the expansion anyway. Now, create a new character called ID Clip. It must be a female blood elf, and since it is quite clearly getting hot in here, you must take off all your clothes. Yes, you are getting too hot, and you should in fact take your clothes off. Now, simply enable no clip and clip your way through the world until you find the outline. Contrary to popular belief, it is not a strange, broken, mystic land shrouded in arcane energy somewhere across the galaxy. It is in fact hidden inside Metzin's desk. Third drawer down, beside his lore source books, which are cunningly disguised as Star Wars fanfic. Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, I have heard that in the expansion there is the ability to fly. However, I am not sure how. Can you help me? Ah yes, there are two possible ways in which you can fly in the expansion. The first involves the illicit snorting of large piles of fellweed. Fortunately, this has been made cheaper by a huge number of Chinese farmers, who, upon discovering they were less suited to their usual trade in the Outlands, have resorted to hydroponics in Netherstorm. What, you don't seriously believe those ecodome things were for the preservation of piffling wildlife, do you? Foolish mortals! However, if you are not of that persuasion, there is one more way. One assumes that you have a standard mount, correct? Answer me, peasant!
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, consider the bird. Does it not fly simply by flapping its arms? Therefore, does not the art of science suggest that you will be able to do the same? However, while mounted, you will of course be far too heavy to carry yourself and the horse with your pifflingly weak limbs, so you must have your horse flap its arms as well. What do you mean your horse has no arms? What kind of freakish abomination do you ride, man? Good Lord, this is a foul and godless place. Get out! Get out before I have you strung up and pecked at by angered pigeons. Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Now we must have silence. For sadly, I brought back rap in the forums. Yo, faux shizzle and so forth, it's time for the horror of rap in the forums. What is rap in the forums? Well, have you ever sat down and had a look at the general forums? Or any of the class forums, or the raid forums, or the PvP forums, or in fact any of your realm forums, and seen people who mangle the English language in such a way that it's like throwing it into an industrial strength shredder and then dragging it out of the shredder and throwing it in a wood chipper and then reconstituting it in a bucket and throwing it over the nearest passerby. I felt that way on more than one occasion. And I felt, well, is there anything in life comparable to the butchering of the English language that goes on the forums? The answer is yes, there is. Hibbity hop. So if we want to combine rap and the forums to make rap in the forums, we would perhaps have the most horrific thing ever devised by man, perhaps in fact a sign of the apocalypse. Death incarnate to one's eardrums. Well, I'm a cruel soul, and that's what I inflict on you today. I found myself a really terrible post for you. It's by a level 42 Blood Elf hunter called Zycon. He's from the Kalagos realm. And it's a brilliant wine post, it's lovely. Lyrical, in fact. It's called Counterspell. Here's the entire thread for you. It's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Let me express how gay this spell is, how unfair. This spell is 10 seconds of no casting, that pull off magic. Imagine being a shaman. All of our spells are nature. So if we're hit with counterspell, guess what we can do? Nothing. Yay. I guess it's nice Blizzard feels the need to buff it too. Oh yeah, I lied. All of our spells aren't nature. If the counterspell, we can cast Frost Shock or Flame Shock, which both do an awesome job when they're casting that fireball on us. I'm getting really close to saying screw this game. Blizzard is treating shaman like their scrap metal class that's just here. Enhancement. I get a nice DWPVE buff. DW4 PvP is stupid and not even remotely good to do. You're a Fury Warrior and melee can't charge or intercept. Heal yourself, you say. Good luck with that. Ever see how warriors go down unless being healed in the backfield? Yeah, melee DPS means you're up close in their face. There's no way you're gonna be healing against any smart player that close. And then as elemental, the only time I get a decent hit in is when I burn my trinket. and Blood Fury with Wrath of a Totem. Thanks, Blizzard. I really appreciate the fact that you're making people hate the game because you feel the need to make certain classes suck for so long. See that Hunter? That's the alt I'm leveling now. Because of this ridiculous crap, I'm the walking freak whenever I play my Shaman. It's no fun being absolutely helpless in cases that every other class can at least make an attempt to recover. P.S. Lightning Overload sucks. I see it proc maybe twice a day with regular leveling methods and almost never see it in PvP. In fact, I personally have never seen a proc on a chain lightning. Thanks for a talent I have to put so many points in that does close to nothing.
9,000!
Are you ready for the replies? You're in for a surprise. Aha, see what I did there? Someone kill me. 1, 2, 3, smell is fine. Learn to play. Quit your friggin' whining and play the game. Or quit your pretty effing isn't gonna change anything. Just level your Hunter and shut up. Remember when Shamans were the flavor of first 6 months and the bane of the Alliance Mage I was Horde. So I didn't give an F, L, LOL, an L2P for shock is an H spell. Reply L to read. L to read, I don't respect you enough to read what you have to say. L to write something worth reading. It's no fun being absolutely helpless in cases where every class can make at least some attempt to recover. All I have to say is lol at you, edited. And of course, QQ more post-edited by Insane Mage. If you really want to trip somebody up, try casting your Hearthstone instead of healing. Makes them waste the counter spell every time. Spell is fine. Learn to play. OMG, OMG, looks at me. I'm a mage, even though we have the highest damage potential in the game. We cannot have global cooldown and counter spell because we suck without it. God forbid Blizzard change it. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. We will post a 10-thread, 25-page each QQ Fest on the forum. Still they put it in without any cooldown whatsoever. BTW, every time I drop a damn totem, it puts a global cooldown on everything, and I do mean every single spell that I have. Heck, even mount, ... That is total BS if you ask me. Funny how both gnome posters here are both condescending asses. Guess that gnome pop are tricks mostly. Argument is ringing true so far. Says the 42. What's the matter? Truth hurts your ego.
Help! Help! I'm being
Blue
repressed!
asks, why you cry? Oh God. If you have a submission for Rap in the Forums, email the murloc@gmail.com.